Hi, this is Angela, and welcome back to Empowered Conversations Rising Above Hate. Today we have Cynthia James with us, and I'm super excited to introduce her to you all. Cynthia, can you please start off by introducing yourself and telling everyone who you are and what it is that you do?
Oh, I'd be happy to, and thanks for inviting me, Angela. So I'm an emotional integration coach, which means I work with leaders, I work with entrepreneurs, I do a lot of work with women to really step into empowerment, to understand who they are, who they've come here to be. And I tell clients, I want to work with you so you don't need me, so that you can utilize your own power and grace. I'm an international author and speaker. I've written 4 books and 5 meditation CDs, and I'm the co-creator of Women Creating Our Futures, which is a series of programs to help women at different levels to move into self-love, self-confidence, self-care, and bring their gift to the planet.
And that's how I met Cynthia originally. I went to the Women's Creating Our Futures conference. I think it was 3 years ago. I think this past year was my 3rd year that I went here in Colorado. It's not Denver. What's the name? It's the Denver area. I just don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we moved a couple of hotels, so
Okay.
I say Denver.
It's in the Denver area here in Colorado, and then my friend and I did a coaching with you. We did it's a 12-week, right? The 12-week coaching program, and then you helped us create our speeches when we did the Moms Who Rise conference, and we were able to speak at the conference. So I'm very, very lucky to have you. And I know that it's been a journey, and I'm so excited that you've been a part of my journey. And I'm excited that you're on this and that we're going to be having this conversation. So thank you so much, Cynthia. I want to start off by asking you, I know that you're 70 years old, and I want to know how things have changed and what it's like to be a Black woman in the United States today, and maybe even 20, 30 years ago. How have things changed?
Well, in some regards, they've changed, and in some regards, they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, growing up Black in America, I mean, my family, had a litany. It was like, get an education so that you can create a different life, make money and take care of your children. Because where I grew up, in fact, I grew up several blocks from where George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis.
Oh, wow.
And where I grew up and in that area, it was redlined. You could only live in a certain area. You couldn't rent or buy beyond that area. It was polite, but you weren't going there. And it was confusing because we had interracial schools, and people kind of hung out together, but people were still concerned. I don't want my son to marry a Black woman.
Yeah.
And so I think we thought at that time that if we just got enough education, if we made enough money, and if we lived in the right place, things would shift. But racism, it underlies, and so you wouldn't see people rising to certain levels in organizations. You wouldn't see on television. If you think about the 50s and 60s, you didn't see, Black stars like you do today.
Yeah.
They were housekeepers or whatever. I mean, I remember when Diane Carroll got her own series, and she was a nurse, and it was like a big deal, and we were still portrayed as gangsters or sluts or whatever, and so there was always this working against the current, and people kept saying it's getting better, but Black men were still getting killed, Black women were still being raped, there was still harassment going on. And I think what has happened is it's gone in curves, because I think slavery never got addressed. People, we were brought here on slave ships against our will. the Civil War was fought over slavery and the right to have slaves. And so you still have a segment of the population, and I actually don't think it's huge, but I think there's a segment of the population that is still invested in that old paradigm of people of color being less than, not deserving the same respect and treatment. So it's been interesting to witness, and it's been interesting in this moment, because not in my lifetime have I seen people march around the world for equality.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that even though the schools were interracial, the communities were still divided. But if you think about that, I feel like that still happens now, not purposely, but it still happens. Like, this is the area where the Latinos live. This is the area where the Blacks live. And I wonder if that's ever going to change.
Well, you know what? There's something empowering about seeing yourself. I mean, it's one of the reasons why people have fought for Latinos in movies and Blacks in movies. We want to see ourselves on the screens. We want to be able to speak the same language to our people. We have the same kind of cultural mores and stuff, and so we want to connect to that. And so I'm not sure that we all need to integrate where we live and stuff, but I think that the same level of opportunities, the same level of experiences around growth and our children being safe and educated and not having to live in food deserts. I mean, I think that there's a safety in us being together, but there's also an exclusion, and then any old ways of being and old paradigms feed on themselves. So if we've been treated as less than, then we start treating ourselves as less than. If we don't honor ourselves and we don't nurture ourselves and we don't uplift ourselves. I mean, your conference is to have moms come and start to rise, and see who they are and who they've come to be, because the culture has said you're not as important.
Yes. How do we, as leaders, Cynthia? So one of the things I love about going to your conference is the diversity of women. I absolutely love that. So for those of us who are hosting events, who are a part of organizations, I'm thinking more like local organizations, right, here in our communities. How do we diversify? What can we do?
One of the things that we talk about is bring a friend. bring a friend that doesn't look like you.
I like that. Yeah.
And also tell a friend. I do this prayer circle on Monday mornings, right? And I ask people share the videos. Because I think we all are interconnected to different people, I mean, because I'm Black doesn't mean I only have Black friends or so, but I think if we invite, like I host them once a month now, I'm starting to host these conversations of the heart for women. And so I'm telling people, invite people that don't know me, that don't come to my conferences, invite people so we can have these conversations. Because I think that's the only way we're going to diversify, and that we're going to feel safe enough to start trusting each other.
Exactly. So that's going to lead me into my next question is, how do we, and you set that example, let's come together so that we can begin to trust ourselves. But what do we do next? I love seeing the marches. I love seeing that we're coming together. There's a lot of people that are having conversations, stepping out of their comfort zone, bringing light to what's happening in our communities of color. But what do we do, in your opinion, so that I have an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I don't want my kids to be having this conversation 20, 30 years from now. What do we do to come together to, how can I model, and anybody that's listening to this and watching this, how can we model? We may not agree on everything, but let's respect each other, because I think respect is huge. I don't look like you, but I'm still going to respect you. How do we do that?
Well, the first thing I think is we become educated. You know, whoever the oppressor or the conqueror is, they write the textbooks. so, so I think that one of the things is for all of us, no matter who we are, to become educated on history. What's happened, what worked, what didn't work, what was oppressive, what wasn't respectful, what wasn't kind. I think that, and I think to talk about it, because I think what the reason it's gone on so long is that people kind of think it's like, well, that's not my problem. That's
Yeah.
out there, and when in the last few weeks, a lot of things have happened. Videos have gone online and people have suggested books and all this kind of stuff. And people are like, I didn't know idea. I didn't know that happened. I didn't know about that person. So I think education is the first thing. The second thing is, I think, really inviting people to the table like you're doing here,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about their experiences, their desires. And I think the other thing is like, we need to vote. We need to, the apathy and the thinking that we're powerless is what has put us in a position where divisiveness has become the norm.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, I was on a call and this woman said, if everybody went to 9 people they knew and
Mm-hmm.
said, vote, let's get out and vote, that would become a wave. And it doesn't even matter who you're voting for. It's like, get out and use your voice.
Exactly. I hear that. And I
Yeah,
think that that's huge. I like that idea. Reaching out to 9 people. I mean, imagine the wave that we would create.
exactly.
Starting by voting, starting by having the conversation of don't use these words or don't. I see so much hate, so much anger that happens on social media. And that has to be different from when you were growing up to now. It's so many things are changing. And I know when I was a high school teacher, I always used to tell my students, don't say on social media what you wouldn't say to somebody's face.
Right.
And I feel like there's this bravery behind it. Like, I'm going to say it because I can easily block them or they can block me. So I'm going to attack.
Right.
And it's so heartbreaking to see. I love to see the positive movement that's happening through social media, but it's also sort of heartbreaking to see the hatred and the anger behind it.
Okay, because here's the thing. That divide and conquer thing has been a strategy throughout history in wars, in organizations, in leadership. And so social media has just become an extension of divide and conquer. And then
Yeah.
you've got people who are using social media for political reasons, and so it's like I'm going to bash these people, and so that I can get you people to do this. But here's the thing: what we are witnessing is all about survival. It's about how do I make myself feel better so no one can take from me what I think I deserve? How can I feel safer? So part of that is I'm going to judge others, and I'm going to judge experiences, and I'm going to judge leaders, and it pulls us apart. But it's all about survival. It's like, how do I keep my position? How do I keep safe? I'm watching the whole thing about masks, right?
Yeah.
I have the freedom. It's like, and, you know, thousands and thousands of people are dying, yes, but it's about, I'm going to take care of me. It's got to become more us centric as opposed to I centric.
I like that. So I feel like anger or racism, discrimination comes from anger. I feel like anger is something that we see, and it's something that is kind of even implanted in us based on either the environment we were raised in, the environment we are in now. So in these past 3 years, I've been on this journey of personal growth and personal development. I feel like I'm a happier person now. I react differently now because I've learned to take care of myself. And I was having this thought today, and I really wanted to ask you about it because I feel like you just know so much information. And how do we start with, can this issue end, this issue of discrimination, of racism, of anger, of hate, can it end with starting with self-love and taking care of yourself so that you can love and take care of others? I don't know if that's the saying that correctly. Yeah.
So I think it's a yes and a no.
Okay. I
If
want to hear both.
if the self-love is about an awakening and an awareness that humanity is interconnected, then yes, it can start to transform and transcend hate. You know, I mean, what we're looking with the pandemic is, it's going across the world, right? Doesn't matter what race, who you are, it's going across the world, and we're all interconnected. We're all having that experience. So if I only love myself so I can protect me and the people I love, then that just keeps us separated. So, exactly. But if it's about self-love in terms of how do I contribute more? How can I be more in service to humanity? I think us watching George Floyd get killed and all those people going into the streets was in that moment, for whatever reason, it was like, it's not just that man. They're killing all of us on some level. And if this group of people is marginalized, then we're all marginalized. And so I think the self-love has to be in regard to humanity. And I mean, you and I are having this conversation because individually we've been seekers, and then together we come together, whether it's women creating our futures or moms who rise. It's like we come together with a common goal of enlightenment and growth and expansion. And that's what I think the self-love has to feed.
I love that. I love how you explain that, because I feel like we lack that. We forget that we are human. We are all connected, and we're allowing the color of our skin, the beliefs, who you vote for, who you don't vote for, divide us. And I know you're a mom, Cynthia. You have 2 boys, right? Yeah, you have grandchildren as well.
Yeah, I
do.
do.
How has that changed? Because now you're a grandma seeing the attacks that are happening towards Black little boys. How has that changed from being a mom? That came to me right now as we were talking. I was like, wow, Cynthia raised her boys through here.
I told my children, keep your head down and your mouth shut. You do not want to argue with a cop. You do not want to resist on any level. And you do not want to be in situations, where you are defenseless. Because that's been going on in our communities my whole life, different levels of it, and so now, because we've got, cameras on our phones, we're documenting it, but it's been going on. So I would love for my grandchildren to be able to walk out of the house and feel safe. And let me just say this, I don't think that police as a whole are horrible human beings. I don't. I do think there has been an infiltration into the police forces of racists and white supremacists, and it's an opportunity to do whatever it is that they do, and so I think that part of the marching and everything that's gone on is saying, no, this is not okay. You don't just get to kill people and there be no report. You don't just get to break down somebody's house and shoot them in their bed. You just don't get to do that. And in the same time, it's like our responsibility as citizens is to remind each other that we have to be respectful, that we have to be honoring, that we have to be, I don't care what race you are. In every race, there are criminals. In every race,
Exactly.
there are drug addicts, and
Hmm.
across the board. And
Yeah,
so, but I don't want my son to walk out of his house and be profiled as a drug addict or a criminal when he's done nothing, and that's not the life he's living.
exactly. And I think that for me, the compassion part does come from, I can't imagine my boys feeling like that when they walk out, or me having to feel, getting a phone call that says, "Mom, I'm with a police officer." I don't have the same worry as a Black mom does. I don't. And I think that if we could sit there and understand that and just be compassionate towards that, we would make such a huge difference instead of arguing and saying, I don't get it. It's not my problem. It is
Right,
our problem because we're all connected.
right,
For me, it's like, with Moms Who Rise, we're moms. Like, let's support each other. We might not agree with everything, but let's support one another because, in a sense, we understand what we're all going through.
right. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, you're a Latino, and
Mhm.
you have in your life and your marriage created a certain lifestyle and way of being for your family.
Mhm.
And there are certain Latinas who don't have that, who
Yeah.
live in a space where they don't have the exact same concern as an African American, but they
Mhm.
have their own, because there's profiling and there's judgments and stuff that have nothing to do with humanity or who
Yeah.
that person is. So I think whether you're African American or Latino, whether you're Native American, in this country, we've got Native Americans living on reservations with no electricity and water. That to me is insane. We are
It's
the
like, why don't
richest.
we bring that awareness? Why
Right.
don't we know that information?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
You
yeah.
know, Even like going back to the situation with the masks, one of the things that came to me yesterday was we have schools here in my town where kids cannot afford to pay their lunch. And I'm thinking, how are these parents going to afford the mask? That's one more thing that we're adding to that.
That's right.
And if we could just be more compassionate and understand that, we would make such a huge difference. And I love the idea of what you said with sharing it with 9 people, whether it's going to be, hey, reaching out to 9 people saying, go and vote. I don't care who you're voting for, but please use your voice. And doing the same thing with that in different areas would create an amazing wave. And we would begin to see a wave of love and compassion instead of hate, because I feel like that's the wave that's happening.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And I think we are the generation, this is the time
Mhm.
to make that giant shift so that our kids, that we leave a legacy of safety and, oh, by the way, a healthy planet and healthy
Yeah.
water. I mean, you know, the choices that we're making today will impact them.
Yeah. And I don't think I ever understood that until now. It's like, look at the impact that's going to happen. I mean, you think of everything that's going on right now, and it's like that's the economy. It's going to impact my kids. Everything is going to impact them. And how do I make a difference now? And what kind of conversations? I want to ask you about that, Cynthia. What kind of conversations can we have with our loved ones,
Mhm,
with our kids about hatred and ending that?
mhm. Well, here's the thing. I think we can get healthy about feelings. You know, we we're in a society and a culture that wants us to push our feelings down. Don't feel that. Don't, there's no human being that doesn't get upset, doesn't feel angry or whatever. But it's like how you express that, learning to express it in a healthy way, to
Mhm.
say, I'm sorry, that hurt my feelings, and or this is unacceptable, or whatever that is. I think the other thing is finding out what is it that your inner circle, your family wants to do to make a difference. I mean, I know, I was seeing online that some kid decided to get um, backpacks and put stuff in the backpacks for kids who didn't have money. So,
Mhm.
our church, would have food drives and then would deliver them to, so what is it? What's the little thing that you and your family and community can do for people. And you're talking about those kids. I mean, what if your community decided to gather masks to give to families who couldn't afford them? I mean, I don't know. I just feel
Yeah.
like little things add up to big things.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. And that thought actually came to my mind. I said, I need to make a post about this. I mean, things are constantly changing, right? Things are always changing. And I feel like even with it's what you see on the media isn't, or on the news, I should say, isn't everything that's happening. And that's why we wanted to bring light to these conversations and say, look, this is happening in our communities. And we're going to do it in a way from love and talk about these are the experiences that are happening. And this is how we can move forward based on the individual who we're interviewing. And I think that's why I was so excited to reach out to you, because I know that you come from a place of love. And I love that. I love that, Cynthia. I love that about you. And I feel that anytime I hear you speak, anytime I get on and hear one of your lives or do a replay, and I love that. And I feel and I wish that there was more people who did that.
And I think it's growing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the more of us that step forward, the more we recognize and acknowledge one another,
Mm-hmm.
the stronger and the more courageous we get. Because there are a lot of people who live in love, but they're afraid. They're afraid to step forward. They're afraid to bring their voices. They don't want to be attacked or whatever the thought is. But the thing is like if we just keep lifting each other up, healing occurs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. I love that. I think that we need to heal. We need to heal as a society, as individuals. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And we just need to start taking those steps forward. And like you said, use our voices in a positive way and not be scared to show up and not be scared to love. Because I think that's huge. We need to not be afraid to love.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for being a part of this interview. I'm excited to be sharing this with everyone, and I will be posting Cynthia's information in the bio. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or reach out to Cynthia, and you can follow Cynthia. I will post all of that information here in our bio. Thank you.